Okay, so this is the tutorial on the infrared sensor. Now, if you've looked at the ultrasonic sensor, you'll notice that's going to be a little bit more difficult than this one. This one here is a much simplified version. However, when we actually put the circuit together, which I'll show you later on, it's a little bit more technical when we're trying to set the distance. We'll go through that in a minute. So essentially, we're going to start off with our on start block here. Now, let's think about this. We want our infrared sensor to detect something, an object or a movement, and then create some kind of an output. So we're just going to do a simple counter system here. Let's say, for example, an infrared sensor is counting how many people are going through a doorway or something like that. So we're going to go into the point here. So we are going to start off with the actual on start. So let's go to on start here. So we want to get a basic, show a number. And we're going to go into our variables here because we're going to make a variable. We want to make a counter. So we're going to put a count in and we're going to set our count to 0. So at the beginning, we got 0. Okay. Nice and simple. Now we want it to be able to detect every single time someone comes in, and we're going to use our infrared sensor to detect that motion. So we're going to go to an input. Now, this is where it goes a little bit easier than the ultrasonic sensor in terms of the code. The code is easier, the actual physical model is a little bit harder. So let's go on pin here. Now, I'm going to use pin 2 just because it's the closest in the actual board when I'm actually doing this later on. You'll see in the physical model, which makes life a little bit easier. Now, I'm going to go back into my variable and I'm going to go change the count by 1. So every time someone walks in, it's going to add 1 to the system. I want it to show the number, and the number I want it to show is whatever the count is. So right now it's 0. When someone walks through, it's going to go up by 1. So then it will show that count as 1, then 2 people, then 3 people, and so on and so forth. Finally, sometimes they can go a little bit close to each other with the numbers when they're scrolling through. So we're going to put pause in like we did on the ultrasonic sensor for about a second. Now, that's going to be reset in there. We're going to get to a point eventually when after it's counted so many people, we're going to reset it back to 0. So we're going to put in another input here. Let's go on button A press here. So we want it to show the number again, like so. And we want it to essentially do this. In fact, we can even duplicate this and put it on there. So at the beginning, it starts at 0. And every single time our pin 2, which is what we're going to connect up to our infrared sensor, detects a motion, it's going to increase the count by 1 and then show that on the screen. So eventually we want to reset it. On button A press, it will reset back to what we had on the start. Now, as a forever block, you know what? Let's make sure that, because what's going to happen here is it will show the count go up by 1, and then it's going to go away on the screen there. So we want it to keep going. So let's go for, I'm not too sure. Yeah, this might not entirely be necessary, but let's just, for good measure, put this in, because sometimes the screen will then, it won't so much do it on the single digits, but when it starts doing 2 digits, it scrolls it across the screen. And then once it's scrolled, it will then leave a blank screen. So sometimes if we want to see how many people's in the room, we're not going to know until someone enters again. And so we're going to go for our pause here. Let's give it another. So this will make sure that when we've got our 2-digit numbers or our 3-digit numbers here and it's scrolling, it will pause for a second and then keep scrolling. This can be a number of different counters. If you were doing, say, for example, a game like a basketball and you were throwing balls through a hoop and you had a sensor in there and it was counting how many balls you got through the hoop, it could be the same counter as well. So anything where you're keeping score, where you're counting people coming into a room or anything like that. Now, this is essentially it. The problem is when we had the ultrasonic sensor, we had obviously our motor down here and we was able to simulate it. We're not really going to be able to simulate this exactly because the problem is it doesn't really know what's happening when, I mean, if I can press pin 2 here, there we go. It's going to go up by 1 and 2. So this is our input. Essentially, this is a sensor's detecting people. And every time I've clicked it, it's going up. I clicked that a few times, didn't I? There we go. Now, if I click it again, it's going to go up to 6. Then 7, and it will keep going. And then, as I mentioned, we'll get to our 2-digit numbers here. Now, when I want to reset it, I can press A and it will reset it back down to 0 and I can start the whole system again. That's simulating when it's receiving that input on obviously 2, but it doesn't know that I want to use an infrared sensor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to put it together as a physical model and test this code. So we're going to go through the code then. So we've done our code then. We're now actually going to put it onto the actual physical microbit. Now, if you remember from last time when we looked at the pins, this time we're only dealing with 3 here. So we've got our out, our GND, which is our ground, and our VCC, which is our 3 volt. So we're going to start off just by getting our 3 volt VCC connected to the 3 volt there. Our GND connected to 0 volts, like that. And then finally our out. Now this is the one that's connected to our pin. So if we check our code, we've always got to check the code there. I've decided to connect it to pin 2. So I need to make sure that this is connected to pin 2 on the board, which is right there. Okay, so that's connected up. I can see the lights are flashing. It's already detecting there's motion in front of me. So what I'm now going to do, final thing, is I'm going to go to my download code. I'm going to make sure it downloads to the microbit, which it has. And now let's give it a test. If I wave my hand in front of it, 1, 2, 3, and the counter's going up. And there we go. And if I want to reset it, I can just press the reset button and it's all done.